Corin from Greenwood Bonsai Studio in Nottingham. I know a few of you have been following our channel, watching our videos recently. It's a very busy time for us here in spring at the moment. The trees all coming into leaf. We've had lots of new trees in, but we need to work on. So we've found a short little gap in the day to do a short video for you today on restyling this Trident maple. This is a client's tree that he's recently purchased from an individual, and Trident maple, originally imported from Japan. It's over the last few years it's got quite large, and this canopy now really is getting a bit too large, a bit too out of control and a bit too broad. In particular, this tree is now looking like the pot is a little bit too small for it. There's a little bit of imbalance. So we would discuss putting it into a larger bonsai pot for the client. But at the moment, it's a little bit late to do that this year because the tree is already in leaf. But one thing we can do, even though we can't repot it into a larger pot at this time of year, we can make the tree maybe a little bit smaller so that it looks a little bit more comfortable within this size pot. Normally, a spring prune of this magnitude would normally be done a few weeks earlier, but I can't help that because I've just been bought the tree recently. So because it's now come into leaf, the aim of this is to try and reduce some of the length on this section on the top. The very vigorous Trident maples, a lot more vigorous than Japanese maple, and you do have to be quite aggressive in pruning the top of the tree in order to maintain a good size without it getting too big, to stop it getting thick, lumpy growth in this upper section, and also to maintain vigour into these lower branches. So it's in the studio today for this work, and the tools that we're going to be using for this today, we're going to be using a normal Ryuga RS scissor that I use for most of my pruning work. We're going to be using a spherical concave pruner. It's like the normal concave pruner branch cutter, but it's got a rounded tip to it. And then we also use a small narrow head concave pruner for more delicate work on the tree. Once we've trimmed the tree, we're going to use lac balsam wound sealant to seal the cuts. Okay. So the front of the tree is in here towards you. So let's get some tools and we'll make a start. We'll start on this side of the tree here, and what I'm going to be doing is trimming branches back to foliage that's further back. So let's just start off something like this. If you can have a look at this branch here. Now this is coming out from the tree. It's got a few little leaves and breaks and buds along it, but this section here is growing up more from there, and it's also a bit too long. So we've got a few options. On this one, I'm going to take this section off to here where it's growing upward too much, and that section to there. So we've reduced it to this sort of length. And then coming round here a little bit further back, same sort of thing. This one's growing up too much, and we can shorten this back like this. The same here. Take some of these tips off. This one here, and again using quite a fine, delicate pair of scissors. So you know, this is a specimen tree, and you've got to do precision work on it. When you're looking to get refinement on a tree like this, it is a precision task. So you want to use the right tool for the job. Decent pair of clean, sharp scissors, so we can get in there and trim back nice and neatly. Now, some of these branches, there might not be buds further back, so a few of them, I'll cut them blind and hope that buds will emerge, which they are likely to do on this tree, particularly at this time of year when it's got a lot of vigour. We could potentially just pop this tree in a greenhouse for a little while, for like the next 3 or 4 weeks, just to encourage it to send growth out on these branches, on some of the bare branches. So continuing round towards the front of the tree, and I'm doing this in 2 stages. This first stage, I'm just taking back the overall size of this tree, the diameter of the canopy, if you like. So what I'll do, I'm just working my way around, trying to chase these tips back to more compact growth. And then once we've done that, we're going to have a look at the actual structure of the tree and see if there's some more growth that needs to come out of it. So I'll work my way around here, trim across the front, this section here. Most of this, about 80% of it, we are cutting back to buds that are already there. And in this section, this is growing up a little bit too much. This is a bit too long. This can shorten back. And here into this section. And turn it around a little bit. This is a little bit too long. This is a bit too clunky and heavy. This is growing up too much. And usually I'll trim this a tree like this. I'll trim it once a year. It's probably been trimmed every year by the previous owner. It just hasn't been taken back quite so much as I normally would. So I think it's more of a case of over the last few years, it just ends up sort of creeping out a little bit more. And you can own a tree like this for 10 or 15 years. And if you don't prune it quite so much, or you perhaps don't go so hard on it every few years, it just tends to get a little bit too wide. It doesn't come all at once. It just gets a little bit wider every year until you've got a tree that's just a little bit too much out of control. And then a pruning like this will get it back on track. So now getting round here to the back of the tree, lower down sections, where we've got some buds breaking further back again, always looking for those and trimming back to them if we can. Just almost back to where we began, at this sort of level of the tree. You can see in here at the tip there's quite a lot of activity here and vigour, but there's also buds further back down here, so we can trim back right back to this bud in here if needs be. This point there's another bud here. I'm just going to take the tip of this back to here and to this section, just back to there, look, for now. There's a few little dead stubs in here that have been missed, a few little twigs, so no harm to just get rid of those at the same time. And we're always trying to cut out heavy growth, branches that are crossing, branches that are going up too much, out too much, just all those things just relate to sort of bad structure within the tree. So we can't always cut out all the bad structure at once. You know, it might take several visits, several prunings of this sort of nature, but if every time I step to a tree like this, I trim off the worst bits, then over the course of a few years, the idea being you've got less bits that sort of are annoying, less worst bits, and you regrow it with sections that are in the right place and the right distance apart from other branches, and just have a better quality of ramification and precision on the tree. Okay, so we've trimmed ourselves around this Trident. We've done the sort of first pass, first pruning. We're taking off maybe 80 to 100 millimetre of growth all the way around the perimeter of the canopy. The front's towards you. If I spin it round, so you're looking at it from the side, there's still quite a little bit on this back edge that's quite broad. So we need to do something about that. And till now, I've just been using scissors to just prune back thin new growth. So we're going to now step up to a little narrow-headed concave pruner. We're going to look a little bit more in detail at the tree structurally. So there's a branch like this that's coming up off this horizontal branch. It's got a sort of pig's tail in it, a twist. It comes over here. It's a bit of a strange formation at this point here. Now obviously this is the first time I've pruned this tree. If I'd pruned this before, I probably would have took this branch off a few years ago. So now I've got the ability to do so. I'm going to remove that one there and tidy up that cut with a concave pruner, like so. Can you also see that this section here is quite heavy, and clumpy and lumpy. So I'm going to reduce that back. So this is the second stage of pruning, where I'm trimming this tree for the actual structure rather than just the size of it. So this one's pruned back. This is okay, but we could take this section back a little bit more. This one up here, this is growing in towards the tree, this section, so that can be reduced back. This is a little bit heavy, and this is too long. If I turn it back round so the front's facing me, I'm just going to do a sweep through the tree with a concave pruner, just taking back, again, some of these thicker stubs that we couldn't do with the scissors, and also some of the heaviness. Like this is quite heavy growing upwards, this section, take it out. And even though we're taking these sections out, and in some cases it leaves a gap at the moment, that's fine, because if you take a heavy section out that's ugly and you leave a gap, that gap will usually be filled by a better bit of growth that's more refined, more delicate, and therefore you've made the tree better over time. A few of these here are a little bit heavy on this side, can be reduced back a little bit. Branch here growing upwards a little bit too much. And I'm always going through this tree looking for branches that are the most, most offensive, the ones that sort of look a little bit unsettled, the ones that jar your eye, the ones that don't look too fluid. So it's always a matter of homing in on those and removing them where you can. This one here is coming up here, look, it's crossing this one, touching it here. It's not very good formation. We could wire it down into here, but we've already got this branch here. So that section there, I'm going to remove that back to that point, just there. This is a little bit long, this section. Same with this piece. And it might take, like I say, it might take 2 to 3 prunings like this for us to get this into desired shape, ramification and density on the upper section of the tree. So this first pruning will often see the most drastic, but you have to tackle it, and you have to sometimes take 2 steps back with a tree like this in order to then take 3 steps forward in the coming few years. Now we've finished pruning the tree with the first pass with a pair of scissors, the second pass with a concave pruner, taking out growth that we don't want, awkward branches, to this sort of shape that we're now looking at in front of us. And it has brought the tree down in size, so it doesn't look as underpotted as it did before we started. Now, although this is a mature specimen bonsai, you know, these procedures that I've shown you, the technique and what to remove and how to trim it back, it's still the same if you've got a tree half this size or a quarter of this size or even a younger tree. The process isn't any different really. We're going to put this in the greenhouse now, which is just going to help it push on growth and break some of these latent buds and these ones that are just starting. So it'll go in the greenhouse for the next probably 2 to 3 weeks here in early spring. I think we've probably took about 25% of growth off this tree. If you have a look on the floor, all the bits that we've cut off, there's a fair amount of growth there. And the tree will grow better now because it hasn't got to support all that growth that we don't need. If you've liked this video, then please subscribe to our channel. In a few days, I'm going to be doing a similar video on a Japanese maple, so it just gives you a slightly different view of a slightly different species. But this is the sort of work we're doing at this time of year, and I know a lot of people have said, oh, I seem to work a lot with maples, and I do, but it's more that at this time of year, this is what we're doing at the nursery. We're working on deciduous trees, we're working on a lot of maples at this sort of stage of growth. And later on through the year, when I start working on junipers and evergreens, there will be videoing those also. So please subscribe so you don't miss anything. Thank you.